All right, we have another change of plans. As you all know, the next session was originally entitled Sharkathon, Chewing Over Innovative Strategies for an Inclusive Economy. Yesterday, the Congressional Visitor Center indicated that they thought that it would be inappropriate to run a competition from the stage of the U.S. Capitol. And we actually deliberated back and forth, and while we're still going to hold our competition, and by the way, we got 39 applications from our RFP, 39 people who had great concepts for financial inclusion and how to bring people into the mainstream. And out of that, we actually selected 4 innovative proposals that we thought were quite exciting. We will still have those people on the stage, along with the people formerly known as sharks, now known as experts. And we're actually recasting the format into a conversation amongst the experts and the innovators. And the new title of the session, that's more appropriate for this venue, is Equitable Strategies for Advancing Financial Inclusion, Innovation, and Access. And by the way, we will, instead of having a competition from the stage, we will have our experts rank the proposals of the our 4 finalists, and we will announce the winner next week via press release, not from the stage. So with that, I would like to introduce somebody I just think is a terrific person, and I've known her for a long time. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Expert-in-Chief, Janis Bowdler, who is the Managing Director of JPMorgan Chase Global Philanthropy. She recently launched Pro Neighborhood for JPMorgan Chase, a $125 million 5-year initiative to drive economic opportunity in disadvantaged neighborhoods. Janis is an accomplished professional in the field of economic development and asset building. Prior to JPMorgan Chase, she was at the National Council of La Raza, the Famicos Foundation, and she's authored many articles on Hispanic homeownership. Finally, my greatest bio piece about Janis is she was one of our network experts. She was one of our experts of color network members when she worked at the National Council of La Raza, which is where I got to know her really well in all of her dynamic work around asset building, home ownership in particularly. She is a wonderful and talented person. So please join me in giving our moderator, our expert-in-chief, Janis, a warm welcome. Thank you.
Well, hello, everybody. So, you know, small change of plans, but this is DC. We can roll with that, right? That just sort of happens to us. So you heard the shift from Maya. We're really going to have a conversation. I think it will be quite insightful to actually pair our innovators with experienced entrepreneurs who have been down this road before. And so let me actually bring them out. We're going to add a few chairs here. And so first, let me introduce to you our experts. I have to tell you, each one of these folks have extremely distinguished bios. They should be in your materials, and I'm not going to go through all of it in the interest of time. You'll actually get to hear a little bit more about their work in our discussion. But let me go ahead and bring them out. We have with us Brandon Andrews, who is a communicator, social innovator, and entrepreneur who works with the Values Partnership, leading a nationwide casting call tour aimed at diversifying ABC's hit show Shark Tank. Brandon, thank you for joining us. We also have with us, let's go ahead and give him a round of applause. Natalie Cofield, who's carved a niche for herself as an entrepreneur, advocate, and speaker on diversity, business and diversity. She's launched 3 businesses, I think she was just explaining to me in the back, including incredibly important work with Walker's Legacy, supporting women entrepreneurs of color. And Jerry Nemorin, I'm sorry, Jerry, who co-founded LendStreet Financial in 2010. He is the CEO, and I actually got to know him because through our work with the Financial Solutions Lab, Jerry was one of our inaugural winners. So Jerry, come on out. Now I'm going to tell you, just because we've switched our name away from sharks to experts, we're still not going to go easy on these guys, but I'm about to introduce our innovators. They have really excellent proposals. We're excited to hear more about those proposals ourselves. I'm going to go ahead and introduce them one at a time, but I'm not going to talk about their work yet because I'll just name their organization, because they're actually going to tell you about their innovation. So Ira Musharraf, who is going to talk to us about Income Smoothie and is with Pay Active. Also, let me welcome to stage Angel Rich, who leads Wealthy Life and is going to talk to us about her Credit Stacker program. Eric Kinman, who is part of the executive development team at Viridian Credit Union and is going to talk to us about working solutions. And we have Marla Bilonick from right here, hometown, but no favorites, but from the hometown, from LEDC, who will be talking about her concept for Branch on Wheels. Thank you. So thank you again for coming, guys. I thought we could spend some time kind of setting up this issue of financial inclusion, but actually, as Maya described at the opening, this really is a gathering of experts who are thinking a lot, doing foremost research in this area. You all know what the challenges are around financial inclusion, so I'm actually not going to take our time to do that. What this panel and what this discussion wants to be about, what I want to kind of pull out in our conversation with you all today, is that we're going to tackle this challenge from a slightly different lens, and I think a different lens than a lot of us from the policy world have done, which is that we've got some new ideas that can take a serious bite out of the financial exclusion that a lot of our families are experiencing. But we've got something else going on here, which is that sort of underlying this conversation is the challenge that these types of innovations have in kind of reaching the marketplace and then going to scale. And embedded in that is the challenge that entrepreneurs of color are not getting the level of investment in their ideas and their concepts that mainstream white founders are getting. And so as we kind of talk through this, I'd love for you all to think about that. I'm going to ask our experts to kind of weigh in as well on their own experience overcoming those challenges, maybe still facing them, and giving advice to our innovators on stage. So innovators, we're going to go one at a time, and I'm going to ask you to just give us a brief overview on the innovation that you've come up with. Tell us, how does it address the challenges of financial inclusion, for whom, and what are some of your biggest challenges to getting your innovation to scale? And so, Erin, why don't we start with you?
Thank you so much for having us at this forum. So I represent Pay Active. I am the Director of Impact and Analytics. At Pay Active, we have introduced a financial technology solution for employers to provide real-time access to earned income for their employees. The reason we've come to this as our solution is because we've discovered that there are $140 billion of earned income that is stuck in the pipeline every week. This is a weekly number. In the meanwhile, there's 146 million employed Americans, these are Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers, of which 90 million have less than $500 in savings. So once an individual pays their rent, especially if you're in the base of the pyramid as far as income is concerned. Rent is paid. It's usually 50 to 70% of your paycheck. And after that, in order to get to the next paycheck, people are going to lenders, alternative financial services. These are billions of dollars. It's $138 billion are spent, are actually paid in fees by people, by working people. And so our solution is really meant for employers to sit on the table and also be a stakeholder in the process of the financial well-being of their employees. And we do this, again, by providing access to earned income so that you don't have to go to the lending marketplace. And as far as the challenges that we face, I actually do a lot of interviews with our users, and it's boiled down to the fact that there's instant uptake once an employer adopts our model because there's need. People much prefer using our service over having to go out and do any kind of lending just for daily living expenses. That's the other big finding that we've had is one assumes that there's loan products out there. People are actually taking loans to either meet rent or if rent's met, then just for day-to-day living expenses. And to me, personally, that's a travesty. To our company, that's our mission, is that people should not have to go and take on loan credit products. So our challenge really is to get employers on board, and we need support. We have thousands of users, but we want to be in millions of users if we want to keep our costs down. And we're a benefit corporation, so that's something that we're very responsible about is how much it costs the end user.
That's great, thank you. So Jerry, I'm going to come to you as an expert who is building a fintech company. You're living this real time. As you're listening to PayActive's experience, questions for her on kind of that, drawing on your own experience?
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. One of the things that popped up first and foremost is you're going to have to sell this product to businesses, and for it to scale, you're going to have to sell it to major businesses. What are some of the gatekeepers that you've met with, and what are some of the concerns they have? What are some of the issues? Oh, sorry. So you're going to have to sell this product to big corporations, and there are going to be gatekeepers. What are some of the issues you're hearing that's keeping them from adopting this product? What is the cost of the product? How does that impact the company's cash positions, right? Because now you go from a weekly pay or biweekly pay to a daily pay. So there's going to be cash implications for that business. What are some of the things you're hearing, and what are some of the barriers to entry?
Okay, I'd love to talk about this. So the entire model, our team is actually all payments experts. So the entire model is basically a seamless solution for businesses to employ. Once businesses, we work with existing time and attendance payroll data, and there's no cost to the business to implement. Within 48 hours, we can plug a business on. That's how long it's taken all of our customers, and we've got testimonials. The challenge really is there's a patronizing attitude and almost like a finger wagging that happens that if you have not been able to manage your daily living expenses, there's something wrong with the way you're managing finances. And it's the patronizing attitude that we want to raise awareness about, which is why I feel like it's important to be at a forum like this. We've spoken to banks. We are in conversations with credit unions, with community development banks to speak to their commercial clients. But really for us, the underlying aspect is raising awareness that this is a real issue. There are 90 million people with less than $500 in savings. And once people recognize that, and once people look at that as a real problem, this is not because we're mismanaging finances. This is a reality. If our rent is gone, we make rent. After that, people are having a hard time paying for groceries. So that's, awareness. We want to be heard, and we want to put this solution out there as an alternative to debt and to more credit onto people.
I'm already breaking the rules, but we're a panel of entrepreneurs. That's what we do. So when I heard the pitch, one of the first things that came to my mind was the risk assessment and the risk analysis associated with the company. So what is to say that you give an employee opportunities to have access to capital, and then they either are terminated or they quit and they leave? And how do you all plan to kind of mitigate that for the business? If this is something from the perspective of looking at this from insurance, those same type of kind of risk assessments and risk analyses are embedded into the formula of how much it costs. So that was one of the biggest things that came to my mind. And then the second question there was, what method of evaluation could you incorporate for an employer to say, Tom comes to work every day on time. Tom has been working with us for a year. We think that the risk associated with giving Tom this type of funding is lower, and as such, we will.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for that question. So we actually have, we've got thousands of individuals in our systems and dozens of businesses at the moment, and that is what I do is I measure impact and analytics. So we actually have measured time and attendance data of people that are enrolled in our program and people that are not. And we've actually seen significant, and I don't want to quote the numbers yet, but it comes to something like 30% reduction in turnover. So there's improved retention for the employer. So there's very clear employer benefits. If your worker is financially healthy and not stressed because they're going to be evicted or because they have their child needs to get milk in the fridge, you're going to have a productive workforce. So for us, the metrics are really closely measured, and I actually put out a report every quarter that I share with employers, which go over all of what usage, what percentage of use of people are active users, what the amounts that are being withdrawn. Just as an overview, there's no specific information ever divulged, but this is to give employers an outlook of how they're helping actually their employees.
So when you make the pitch to the employer, one, what is the cost of the service? Two, do you factor in, again, employers are making what they call float on any cash that's sitting in JPMorgan Chase's account, right? So that's that's obviously a cost that's associated with that product. Not just what you're charging them, but also the cost. So are you looking at it from the perspective, when you make that value proposition, are you saying, this is the cost we charge, this is likely your opportunity cost on the capital that's going to be deployed and earned each day, but here is the value proposition because we're reducing your turnover by 30%, which means you have a more knowledgeable workforce so you're keeping human capital internally, and this is the cost this is what it would cost you to go out and hire someone new and onboard someone new. Is that sort of the value proposition analysis that you're presenting to the employers? And if so, how do you go about doing that methodology? And two, what's the receptivity to that pitch?
Okay. So the value proposition to the employers, when we go and pitch to them, again, there is no cost for setup. There's really, it's clear, it's just a win-win solution. It's difficult to, so the employers there's no cost to the employer, but some employers may choose to, similar to a health insurance plan, subsidize the cost of the transaction. So the product is basically the employer, just like a healthcare benefit would say, now you can go to Kaiser Permanente or, your hospital for health benefit. And similarly, the employer would offer a voluntary benefit through their wellness package and say, now you have Pay Active, and in the event you need to access your earned income early.
Question. I'm going to try to be a shark.
Okay, no, please go.
You're not answering the question. That's fine.
So no, so let me just go through that. So it's that in case you need to, you pay $5 in order to access anywhere between $100 and $500. Some employers actually have stepped up. Goodwill being one of our employers, that is actually paying $2.50 to subsidize the cost for their employer. But it's a flat transaction fee, and there's no interest attached to it.
So I had that question, and maybe you can clarify what the revenue generating aspect of it is. So it's a $5 fee to draw down on your pay per day.
It's just based on usage. So it's if you.
That's what I mean. So if you drew down your pay every day, you would pay $5 every day, or right?
Well, we've built in mechanisms to make it for financial incentives to be and for fairness, but within 48 hours, you know, you would still pay $5 if you withdraw up to $500 of your earned income. So that's the.
And have you seen a challenge with? So you're solving a short-term issue for a family. They've earned wages and they need money today, so we can draw on that. But as we see with people who take out payday loans, right, like 2 weeks later, they can't make up that gap. Are you putting them in a position where just 2 weeks later they're going to have that shortage anyways?
Well, so that's exactly the idea, is that it's to match your expenses. It's to eradicate the income expense fluctuations that people are going through on a monthly basis. So you would have to pay that bill at some point. You would have to make rent at some point. We're just saying, in case you haven't been able to with your paycheck, you can access whatever hours you've earned. So if you don't have money in the bank account, you do have accrued income that you have that earned, and you basically are able to draw down on that instead.
But you could still be in a situation where you've spent your check early, and then when it comes time for payday, you're still short and you haven't yet worked the hours.
I mean, I think this is really what it boils down to. When an individual is living at that brink of an edge, I mean, this is where our findings have been out there. When we do interviews, people are, I think that's where with employers we face, this is the challenge with employers, is at times there's a patronizing attitude of, did you not manage your finances right? And that's why you're in this situation. We find over and over again that these are responsible. There are mothers that are using this. These are the range of people that are using are between 25 years of age and 44 years of age, head of households, and they're really living hand to mouth. And it's, I mean, are you not going to be in that situation? Well, you're paying expenses. Really, you don't have that kind of room. And right now, I mean, what's the alternative to this is you go take a loan and you pay a $45 fee to a payday lender, or a $35 bank overdraft fee, actually, which is slightly below a payday lender, but it hits people as hard. And we're finding that people are paying, basically for base of the pyramid, you're paying 10% extra for just, that's the cost of basically almost like a tax that you're paying just to access basic financial services. And we want to, our goal is to remove that 10%.
Thanks. So let's wrap up on this one. Any last questions or comments from our expert sharks, our shark experts?
I'll give a comment. I think there's certainly a need for an income smoothing product. I think you have something, but I think there's some considerations that need to be done in terms of analyzing it from the employer perspective and the actual cost to the employer, but also on the tertiary, potential impact, which was what Janis was bringing up. People are creatures of habit, and so if I'm used to getting paid at the end of the week, and now I can access that money midweek, what is the potential adverse action impact, right? Does that, by allowing me to access my 3 days worth of income, then spend it on whatever it may be, then what happens at the end of the week? Did I just screw myself over in the longer term? So I think there are probably things you can consider, you can do to help make that more concrete for the user and make sure that they're not overusing the product, much like payday lending.
Yeah, great. Thanks. So I'm actually going to jump, and Eric, I'm going to come to you since you also have a workplace solution working specifically with employers. So tell us about your innovation.
Sure. I'll talk about some of the challenges first, and I want to say that Ms. Musharraf is exactly right. We're dealing with consumption needs, daily consumption needs. I just on Tuesday night returned from Honduras doing some financial inclusion work there, and my favorite souvenir was this saying that I learned, "Collo quebrado, collo comido." So if you know what that means, I see some heads nodding. What that means is if you crack a nut, you eat a nut, okay? If you make $1, you're going to spend $1. That's survival. That's day to day, right? And so I think keep that in mind when we're talking about these things. Just getting day to day is very, very costly. Access to $1 is very, very costly. And I think the solutions, at least hers and mine that I know of, are making this less costly, you know. And the session before this, I think, was a great lead up. You know, first of all, Mr. Cunningham, the idea that cash should be a utility, let's talk. I've got lots of ideas on that. Second of all, 25% was the number thrown out about African Americans that want to start their own business, right? 75% don't, okay? Or don't think they want to, okay? In Iowa, okay, we have, let's see, 9% are underbanked statewide. African Americans, it's 38%, okay? So in your mind, start creating this Venn diagram, okay? 75% don't want to start their own business, 38% are underbanked, 16% of African Americans are unbanked, okay? Almost 3 times as much as the rest of the population. What does that Venn diagram look like for the people that want to start their own business and have the capacity to start their own business? And as someone said, if you start your business, and if you fail, start another one. If you're living day to day, you can't afford to just go out and start a business and run the risk of failure to start another business and fail and to start another business, okay? You just don't have that capacity. And so the solution that we've come up with is one that is similar. You know, we're taking credit and access to cash to people, okay? The number one barrier to financial inclusion is access, okay? Most of our banks and credit unions and even our CDFIs are not where they need to be. And you're not going to find many banks or credit unions that are going to build a branch in a neighborhood that is not going to generate the income to pay off that capital investment, right? And so what we are proposing is to take small dollar cash to the people. We've launched a $500 and $1,000 loan product that is taken to the employer, okay, and offered to employees at an affordable rate to give them access to cash so that they're not going out and using payday lenders and alternative financial service providers. That program worked extremely well, so we wanted to be even more innovative because this is being done in various pockets throughout the U.S. We want to be even more innovative. We want to take this kind of concept out to African American churches, okay? And when I say African American churches, what I'm talking about are churches whose congregations are predominantly African American, okay? Take credit and break down that biggest barrier, which is access, and take it to the people where they are. Give them the opportunity to access small dollar cash to meet their daily consumption needs. Because if they're not going to gain that access, which they're not getting right now, then they're going to go use other service providers. Payday lenders, they're an option, okay? You know, 400%, that's pretty expensive. Pawn shops are another option. Street lenders are another option. And I can tell you that 400% starts looking not as bad compared to some of the other loan credit options that they have.
And so, Eric, tell us about some of the challenges as you try to launch.
Sure. I don't think there's too many challenges at all, to tell you the truth. We've got a network already set up. We've got resource coordinators that are ready to go out to the churches. We've got a network of about 17 churches in Des Moines, Iowa, serving roughly about 5,000 member congregation. Our financial resources coordinators will be out on site weekly for about 2 to 3 hours, whatever is convenient for the church, and make available without assessing credit from a credit worthiness standpoint, but solely based on somebody's employment status. Right. If they're employed, then they're going to be able to access the credit. But we've already got a system in place. The processing is efficient, so from the financing standpoint, the credit union, it's not a high cost, and everything is priced in a way that's more affordable for the consumer and for the financial institution.
Great. I want to bring some of our experts in. Brandon, we haven't heard from you yet. Can you weigh in here? Do you have some questions for Eric?
Yeah, thank you for that. Definitely being able to access credit is a problem that I see as we're going around the country recruiting entrepreneurs for Shark Tank. Access to capital is the #1 challenge that's mentioned, but it's also a personal challenge in many of the communities that we go to. So definitely kudos to all of you for the work that you're doing to meet that need. A couple of questions for you. One, you say you already have resource coordinators, so folks in place to be able to go out. What is your expansion, what is your growth potential like over the next year? And if you were to get the funding from this competition or from elsewhere, what would you use that for first? Would it be funding that go-to-market strategy, or would it be something else that would be necessary?
That's a good question. We plan to use the funding that we'd receive from this organization in part to offset some of the collateral, the set-aside money to pay for any potential charge-offs that might occur, which our experience shows that is actually relatively low. Our existing program actually has no charge-offs. We don't expect that to continue, but we do expect somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 10%. So a portion of that money would be set aside. The other portion of that money would go towards the resource coordinators. Other than that, we don't have costs as part of the program. The credit union has built the product so that the costs are part of the product itself. So it's a 17% loan, which at a $500 loan, I know 17% might sound like a lot. It's a lot less than a payday lender, but you have to price it at a way for the credit union to at least be able to break even, because if you create a product that a financial institution is going to lose money on, then it's not going to scale, and that's the biggest challenge, finding that sweet spot where it's affordable for the consumer and affordable for the credit institution, the bank or the credit union.
Right. And how much, and I'm sure you get this question, or your resource officers are getting this question, how much risk are these institutions, whether they be churches or community organizations, et cetera, accepting by establishing this credit union and then allowing their members or allowing community members to come in and receive credit?
There's no financial risk to them because we're not asking them to put up any money for the collateral on the loans. That's something that the grant fund would provide, and we've got a potential matching grant available. So we would have as much as, if we use 10% as the benchmark, $100,000 available in this initial round, available for loans, 10% set aside for loan loss, potential loan loss. If that money's not used, we'd roll that into the next expansion. But from the standpoint of the churches, there's two options. One, if they do not have staff, then the financial resource coordinator would be on site as part of our community service. Second, if they have staff, then what we'd like to do is train the trainers and have them, they're familiar with their church, they're familiar with the congregation, they can provide the financial coaching that comes along with the program, as well as sort of the person-to-person risk assessment. And incidentally, I do want to mention this because I think it's very important. Ms. Musharraf mentioned a very important factor. People at the bottom of the pyramid are, my opinion, are as financially savvy, if not more, than the people moving up into the pyramid. It's not that they don't know how to manage their money and to make that dollar work for them. It's just that at that level, it's very, very costly, especially when they don't have access.
Yeah, so one more thing, and I think maybe Natalie has something. You mentioned doing train the trainer. Is there financial education required? Is that a component required? Or is it something that you offer to the institutions, but then also, of course, to the folks in the communities that may be accessing the credit?
Yeah, that's another great question, because that brings up a really good point. When you start attaching strings to credit, then people are going to go to a payday lender. We do not want to attach strings. We want to out-compete payday lenders. You're not going to out-regulate them, And what we'd like to do is just take a capital market approach to this. Out-compete them. Make that credit available without strings. If an individual wants to get financial coaching, that's available. But for us to say, oh, you need financial coaching because you're poor, that's not the right assessment. And so that's, in fact, what I see, that's an institutional bias that we have from financial institutions, and I think it's getting in the way of us serving and meeting their needs, not our needs.
So I've actually been the recipient of a church loan, so I'm very excited about this. It was a no-interest church loan, but it was a church loan nonetheless, and so I think it's very important that we use our churches and our community organizations as economic tools and entrepreneurship igniters. My question is, you just mentioned no strings attached. But one, what do you have in place to ensure that a person that goes for $500 is actually going to utilize that $500 indeed for a business? Because I'm assuming when you were talking about it initially and I was writing notes, I was confused on whether this was a loan that goes to a person to meet their personal needs, or if it's a loan that goes to a person, because you started off with statistics about Black business ownership and Black business aspirations. And so I got confused in terms of where this loan is going to be applied. If it's going to be applied from the business perspective, what type of wraparound supports are you going to provide to people who may not necessarily have the other end of that, which is the social capital to continue to keep moving their business forward? Or is this just to give to someone to supplement their life?
Yeah, and in fact, I was hoping to finish that up. I didn't get a chance to earlier. But my point was that, you know, starting your own business, that's like a couple rungs up the ladder. We got to get people to be able to be at that first rung comfortably and stably and have that resiliency. This is just a personal loan, okay, to meet personal consumption needs. And we do not ask them what they're going to use it for. That's none of our business. We're not here to pass judgment on how they're spending their money. You know, thank you. Yeah, because I think that's another institutional bias. We want to make an assessment, you know, as institutions about, now, how are you going to use that money? However they need. You know, you want to go out and get a loan for some Mountain Dew, that's your business. You know, I mean, it's not an example. But
what is the interest rate on those loans?
17%.
Okay.
Yep. And that's priced at a point to break even from the institution.
Is that on an annual basis, or is
that?
Yeah,
annual percentage rate.
Okay.
Yep.
And no pre-penalty, no pre-penalty?
Oh, absolutely not. No. In fact, we have some individuals. We actually had individuals that came in and paid off an existing charge-off with that loan. So they're using that loan to clear some past debt. Now, that's not going to happen with everybody. But yeah, so.
What's your cost of capital?
It's, you know, it's just break even. We priced it at 17% to break even based upon what our expectations were. And so we'll have to see how that works out. If it works out and it continues to have the lower charge-off rate that we expect, then I think we could probably lower that, but we'd have to see. But from our standpoint, we just priced that 17% based on the time that it takes to process that loan, which is about 10 or 15 minutes, tops.
So let me ask you two quick questions, and then I'll move us on. A little moderator prerogative. Building off the cost of capital question, what's your path to scale? So that's and what do you see as the sort of top end of what you can be doing volume-wise? And then my other question is the sets of partnerships that you have outlined to achieve this. Have you worked with these partners before, and have you tested the model?
We've tested the model with employers. We have not worked with the churches directly yet, and that's part of the innovation. Mm-hmm. We have worked with our financial coordinators, one of which is here, that do an excellent job of being a trusted intermediary. Mm-hmm. That's not part of the church if they're not comfortable with that, and definitely not part of the credit union because we know there's social barriers there. Mm-hmm. As far as scaling, you know, whatever the number of churches, if we have other types of congregations that come to us.
Surely at some point you run out of capital to lend.
We're a $3 billion organization. What we're pitching is a $100,000 loan program. You know, there's a lot to happen between there. So I don't think there is, I mean, yeah, realistically there is a cap, but not for the foreseeable future.
Okay. Great. So actually, I'm going to come to you, Marla, because these sort of thread together, and actually you also have a solution to kind of bring financial services to people where they are. So why don't you talk to us about what you have in mind?
Great. Thank you so much. So I had actually never heard that Honduran proverb, but it's I was gonna just add one that I think is relevant to the solution that we're bringing to bear, which is no hay mal que por bien no venga, which is loosely translated that there's no bad that doesn't come along with good. And that's something that we're finding for this innovation, that really the issue is that we're trying to resolve is that bank branches are dwindling. This is not only sort of a racial wealth gap issue, but it's also just a strategy that banks are taking. Connie and I actually sit on an advisory board for one of the large banks that shall remain unnamed, and we know that their internal strategy is to either reduce branches or sort of refashion them so that they are staffed differently, staffed less. And so, branches, I believe, are soon going to be something of the past. And it's happening faster in the communities where LEDC works. And so just to give you a sense of where we are in Washington, D.C., and I also welcome a hometown advantage if anyone wants to give it to us, but in D.C., D.C. is actually the #2 most unbanked place in America behind Mississippi. In D.C., 25% of African Americans are unbanked, 40% of African Americans are underbanked, 30% of Latinos are underbanked. And so we wanted to address this issue, and we thought of a very simple solution, which is just helping people use their mobile phones. This is a solution that exists, in the third world in Africa. It's been extremely successful. So helping people use their mobile phones as mobile bank branches. The reason why it's a financial food truck, as we were named by the summit, is that we wanted to bring this technology to communities. We didn't want to have a passive approach where we're holding workshops in our various sites and just expecting people to show up, but we wanted to physically come in a truck, just like a mobile health van or a food truck, and bring it to the community so that people can feel comfortable and casual and just understand that the phone that they have in their pocket is actually a bank. And so I also liked what Gary said about financial services being a utility. Technology is really the equalizer here. And the misconception would be that low-income folks don't have access to technology. That's actually not true. We've done projects, and we also know from the data that many and the majority of low-income individuals have cell phones, have tablets. Latinos are actually the #1 user of Facebook, and I count myself in that number. But so if you can figure out how to use Facebook, you can figure out how to bank online, and that's really what the solution is all about: is explaining to folks how to access the technology that's already there on their phone. Every major bank has apps that can do all sorts of things, from taking a picture to deposit your check to just even tracking your bank balance, which sounds like a very basic thing, but it's actually critical to not overdrawing, to not, making bad choices. And for entrepreneurs that we work with, it's also important to be able to track sales, to track, and all of this is accessible through your phone. So really that's what we wanted to address. One other thing that I wanted to point out is particularly for the community that we work with, not exclusively, but a large portion of our clients are Latinos, and there's also a safety risk to carrying cash. A lot of our clients are working, under the table, or working in entrepreneurial ventures that they're paid in cash. If they don't have a bank that they deposit their cash in, they walk out, they are targets. This happens in all cities, not just DC, but you're walking out with a wad of cash and you're a target for being mugged, and it happens, and it's actually something that has been brought up to the radar screen in DC as a major challenge. So that's something that we feel like folks could also avoid through this technology. You can be paid by Venmo, you can be paid by other ways that don't require an actual physical exchange of cash. So the idea would be to bring it to the community, try our best to also, in coming to the community, address some of the issues around trust and fear of using technology to manage your finances and using online mechanisms to manage your finances. So that is something that we also felt the human touch was necessary, the human touch that they wouldn't be finding at their non-existent bank branch. We could be bringing that along with our service. So I'm kind of rambling on, but one thing I just wanted to list was sort of what we want to help people do. So we want to help people open their bank accounts online, which is actually feasible to do, maximize their bank's apps, deposit funds online, send remittances and transfer funds online, track their expenses online, track their credit score online. receive funds electronically, use third-party money-sharing apps like Venmo I mentioned and PayPal, use online options for business transactions such as Square, and avoid identity theft. That would be sort of part of what the curriculum would include. So
that's it's a tall
yeah.
It's a tall list of things to go after. Natalie, I'm going to come to you first, but before I do that, I just want to kind of remind the panel and folks in the room that as fabulous as all of these solutions sound, they are not yet for sale. We really are talking about concepts and ideas that we think can serve as practical solutions to this challenge of financial inclusion. And once we get through our last innovator, Angel, we're getting to you, don't worry, then I also want to have a conversation about what are some of the policy implications for all of this. So we'll get to that. But before we do, Natalie, let me come over to you for a few questions for Marla.
Sure. So I think the first question first off, all of what you've mentioned, spot on and very ambitious, and wish you the best of luck with it. The first kind of question that I had in listening was, are you replacing a bank? Or are you actually going to be a portal that integrates across banks? And if it's the latter, then how would you be different than a Bank of America? Are you going to turn yourself into a financial institution through this application, which is using other financial apps like Venmo? So what is the difference between them just using a Venmo and banking with Bank of America or Wells Fargo or anyone who is here as a sponsor today? Please pardon me. Or JPMorgan Chase. In that regard.
Yeah. So great question. So LEDC actually is a financial institution. We're a certified CDFI, and we actually are not creating a new app. So we're basically trying to connect people into existing resources. So in that sense, we're not purporting to be the next Venmo or the next bank. We're really trying to just connect people with what is already out there and free. But on the flip side, oh gosh, I had another thought regarding that. Oh, we're not replacing banks because we're going into areas where there actually is no bank. So we're trying to help people avoid the pitfalls of using an out-of-network ATM because it's just the ATM at the gas station, or helping people to avoid using check cashing as their way to deposit their pay at the end of the week. Because there are so many fees associated with it, we want them to be able to leverage what's already there. If they have a bank account, there's a whole world of apps and technology that they can use to do transactions from their pocket rather than having to come downtown to use the bank branch.
So who is your target customer or client? Like I get the consumer, I get who's using your product, but who are you going to pitch this to? Like who's paying you for this product, to use this product?
So we weren't actually going to charge people a fee. It's not a product. So we're basically bringing a service. We're bringing a service which is connecting people to existing products out in the marketplace that they're not tapping into.
But so,
Like, how do we fund it?
Yeah, well, right. So it is a product in that it is going to have costs associated with it, all of that kind of stuff, and it's not going to be its own separate business. I assume it's going to sit within LEDC.
Yeah.
So it'll be a product of LEDC.
Yeah.
So it's a product. So how are you going to fund this, and who's actually paying for it?
So, good old-fashioned nonprofit way. I mean, we've already started, and we've initiated conversations. We have a couple of banks that are interested, but given that it wouldn't be exclusive to their bank, I mean, that's really that would be an angle and a piece that would have to remain neutral, because we're not about to dictate to folks that they have to have an account with XYZ Bank. But if someone wants to brand it and get behind it and view it as something that is their way of bringing banking to a community, even if it's not their bank. But we also, we work with a lot of foundations. We work with DC government. We actually have a really strong connection with the Office of the Chief Technology Officer that has an existing van, which is sort of what we were planning on integrating. And again, it's very nascent. I mean, we're really, really at the very beginning of the thought process.
So I see this as a lead generation platform. Right, so you're going out in the marketplace and bringing in new clients for either your firm or a JPMorgan Chase, keeping with the sponsors. But
We don't
what,
yet have retail branches here, so
Yet.
we're not offended.
Yet.
It's okay.
Fair enough. What are the, what's the cost of acquisition typically for your organization or for other banks? So what's the typical cost of acquisition for each customer? And how does this new product sort of drive down that cost to add value, whether it be, again, to your organization and to whichever organizations you're funneling those customers to?
And before you answer that, let me just quickly ask Brandon if you've got a question. Maybe we can throw them both out. If you do, if you can pass if you like.
No,
but
I definitely do. Natalie kind of stole a couple of mine earlier on. But my question is, what does success look like for you? And is number one. And number two, it sounds like this is that you're making a connection between folks being underbanked and folks not being aware of these app-based resources. Is there a study that's been done on that? How are you proving that out in terms of making that connection? Because it seems to be kind of central to the service that you want to offer.
That's a very good point. I do not have data to back it up, except for anecdotal data of our clients coming through and our being aware that they're not utilizing. Also, the group that Connie and I sit on, they have pointed out that the use of online applications is extremely low versus other ways of interacting with the bank at this moment in time. In DC, what do I have here? 35% of banking transactions are mobile banking, but that's not narrowing down just our clientele. So out of all bank users in DC, 35% are using mobile banking applications.
So is it your plan to work with potential sponsors or partners to get that data from them, or are you planning a study to be able to get that data?
Yes, I think we could readily access that data, but we don't.
I think that's your first product, is to try to do that study. Mm-hmm. And it gives the foundation for why your product needs to exist.
Right.
And it also could potentially fund the beginning pilot of the product.
Yeah.
So the first product, in my opinion, would be the research.
Yeah. I would just throw out that it might already exist. So the first challenge, I think, is just to see if it's there, and then, before recreating a wheel if it's already there. But I think it's a great point. And I don't know if you wanted me to answer the cost of acquisition, but we can move on. Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, I actually don't know what the cost of acquisition is. What I do know is that for our loans, our conversion rate is 10 to 1. So for every 10 clients that we're in contact with, we get one loan for entrepreneurs. But in terms of the staff time that's behind that and what that actually costs,
wait,
I'll
so
work
now
on it.
I'm confused. Is it a customer acquisition strategy for your small business lending?
No. I just was trying to throw out,
I got confused for a second.
how we quantify getting to yes, I guess. But we're not seeking to convert this into small business loans.
Got it. Okay. And last but certainly not least, let's come over to Angel. And actually, the reason why, hopefully you can see how these different, the solutions that we've been talking about build on each other, but actually, Angel, your work cuts across kind of everything that these folks are doing. So tell us about what you've been designing.
Yes, this has definitely been an invigorating panel. I think our challenge is best represented in a question that I would like to ask the audience. Raise your hand if you would like to die broke. Anybody? Okay, we have one person. Some people say yes, some people say no. The answer really isn't important. What is important is that you were able to make a choice. As a fourth-generation Washingtonian, the author of the African American Financial Experience Study and co-writer of Department of Insurance Securities and Banking Unbanked Study, I know firsthand that not everyone always has that choice. Let's think back to when you were in high school. Did you have any idea how important your credit score would be to you? How much that little 3-digit number could go to making or breaking your life? So what's our solution? Didn't you wish that there was a game that allows you to live out your financial life without the risk of losing your money? Didn't you wish maybe somebody just showed you what to do, as if people have been alive for the past million years and people have already lived through life before? So surely someone must know how life is going to actually turn out, right? So, as a former researcher, I've conducted over 70 financial behavioral studies to figure out how to systematically modify people's behavior. We took that information and condensed it down into 12 interactive modules to walk people from birth to retirement, to explain to them their financial resources, financial education, and connecting them in the places that they actually exist. In the Prudential study that I did, I fought very hard to prove that blacks are more likely to learn financial literacy from churches. And so I do believe that churches are very important, but I want to emphasize the financial education. So what we've done is created a game out of it to reduce the apprehension, but also provide the information at the same time. For this challenge in particular, our online game is called Credit Stacker. When Candy Crush made $1.4 billion last year, I said, my God, imagine if they learned something. So instead of swapping candy around, in our game, you swap credit types around. So you have medical loans, home loans, credit cards, auto bills, and so forth. Each one of them have a premium amount or monthly amount attached to them. In a regular match-3 game like Candy Crush or Bejeweled, you swap the pieces around and you have to align them in 3 consecutive bill payments. There's weighted debt on the left-hand side that correlates to the payments. And then there's a credit score that's based on a back-end algorithm that I have a patent pending on that we reverse engineered the Fair Isaac credit reporting system. It simulates to the T the credit reporting system. Taking the research, there's also content that scrolls on the side, and there's multiple choice questions that you have to answer to move along in the game to actually get your badge. We've been so successful with this game that Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking named us their official financial literacy tech partner, and Obama actually named us their financial literacy content partner for the Obama Connect Home for 28 cities. We would now like to take this online platform that we've now more than validated and turn it into an app so that it can be accessible across the world to anyone in any home. The reason I came to this conclusion is I had a very illustrious career at Prudential, and I was faced with a double promotion, an executive MBA to Wharton, and I took a vacation to go to Africa. And I went to Africa, and I met this little boy that had on a Wharton t-shirt. And I kept seeing him every day, and sooner or later I realized this was this little boy's only shirt. And the more I looked at him, I said, you know what? You could grow up and be a genius. But no matter how hard you work, you're never going to have the real ability to possibly go to Wharton and really have the financial literacy that you need. Now, there are exceptions, but I was in the bush of Kenya in Salawa. This boy probably might not even make it out of Kenya. And so my goal and my belief and why I walked away from my career to do this company is that I believe there needs to be equal access to financial literacy across the world, no matter where you are. And as many people have stated on these stages, just because you're in a low economic environment don't mean that you don't have a mobile device or a tablet or some type of access to a digital learning system. And so we're going to take our app and we're going to put it on mobile devices and be able to provide that across the world.
Okay, thank you. So Natalie, I have to come to you first, just knowing your work with Walker's Legacy. This seems like a perfect match for you. Some questions or any feedback for
I mean, I'm just sitting here and I'm just thinking, you go, girl. That's what came to my mind. So I know that's totally biased. So I have to strike that from the record. But I mean, I will ask you a question, you know, and it's not so much a question, but, you know, who would you, if you could say, these are who I'd like to get to invest in my business, if you could proclaim it to the universe today, some of these people might be in the room, what type of organizations do you think would actually invest in your business concept, both from a sponsorship perspective or a actual VC investment that you all are actually looking for right now?
That's actually a really good question. That is actually exactly where we're at right now. We would love to partner with a financial services company because we have the validation. We've had a research study conducted on our product by the Charter School Development Corporation. It was a 3-month study. We increased financial literacy rates by 42%, which is groundbreaking in terms of financial literacy rates after 12 weeks. In 6 weeks, we helped open 1,300 bank accounts with the DC government Federal Credit Union. So the product has been validated. To name a few, I'm obviously very interested in Prudential, JPMorgan Chase, Citibank. I'm actually the spokesperson for Wells Fargo right now. I would love to have a partnership with them. And I'm very big on ethics and morals. Not to make money off of my community, but to actually help them. And so any company that is looking to work with the African American community to truly empower them and provide them with financial literacy and provide a true path to that economic development is what I'm interested in. So it could be a nonprofit. It could be I did a Dell commercial. Dell and Intel have a partnership where they're looking towards diversity. It ties in with technology. Google, we're actually talking to Google right now. And so, any tech company or financial services company.
Let me ask you a quick
JPMorgan
question.
Chase.
Okay, so now I feel obliged to ask some of the, I think with, when it comes to youth and when it comes to gamification, there are a couple of questions that always come up. One is playing with fake money the same as playing with real money? And can you show that what people learn and do in the game is what they do in real life? That's the gamification question. And the youth question is, have you been able to track your participants or your gamers longitudinally? Can you show, or do you yet know, that the excelling in the game in 9th grade means that I make different kind of financial decisions when I'm faced with getting my first credit card when I'm 18 or when I'm shopping for my student loan?
So the partnership we entered into with Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking last year, they used us for 15,000 students across their summer youth employment program. So last year we started our longitudinal study. We haven't quite got to the 4 years yet, but in the study that they conducted, they found that after one session, financial literacy rates went up by 25%. And they found that students maintained, 600 out of the 1,300 students maintained their bank accounts without going under for about a year. Well, it's only been a year. They still have them, basically. 600 of the 1,300 still have the bank accounts. Previously, before they were using our product, they had a very chronic problem where 90% or more of the bank accounts, students would overdraw them and not maintain them. So to have 600 of the 1,300 of them maintaining them was great. They're also 85, when this was an accident, but a beautiful accident, they're 85% more likely to graduate high school. And in a city like DC, number 50 out of 51, we moved up one, y'all. 50 out of 51 this year, that's critical. And that wasn't even an intention of mine. So we have done research on it, and I can't wait till we have those 4-year results to really be able to speak to that. In terms of them mimicking things in real life, yes, we do find that. And that's why we've been successful.
How are you able to observe it?
So we do pre-post studies with them where we observe their we also track their financial IQs, habits, and outcomes. It's very detailed, and it rolls up to the Common Core standards. So we give them a financial health assessment at the beginning. Everything is digital and tailored to their individual performance, so nobody goes down the same path. We give them the pre-health assessment, and then at the end, after 12 weeks, after they go through the program, we then look at their habits again. We have kids that was not planning on going to school, kids that were planning on buying a new car, and now they're like, oh, I'm definitely not going to buy a new car. I need a used car, and matter of fact, I need a job. And so...
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm cognizant of time, and I want to get Andrew in here, so go ahead.
Yeah, so a couple of quick questions.
I'm sorry, I said Brandon. Your name
okay.
is Brandon
I
Andrew,
played
sorry.
football growing up. I'm used to being called by my last name. Where are you at with app development currently? When do you think the public release will happen for that? And of the current educational games on the market that are targeted towards your demographic, how are they doing? What learnings do you have from how they've done, and how will you be able to perform better?
Very nice question. For the game, we're in development right now. We actually are testing it on Google Play right now. I'm gonna be conservative and say, because Autumn gonna get me, I'm gonna be conservative and say within the next 30 days. Well, definitely within the next 30 days, we're testing it right now, just for troubleshooting. The 12 modules, they go from birth to retirement. Each one of them connects with the Common Core standards. They're attached to a learner management system. We're doing very well with that. We actually just got a really nice contract with Montgomery County, and the mayor herself has asked us to design a financial literacy plan for all DC residents where we will be utilizing the learner management system. So if people are from DC, you may be familiar with the Fit DC initiative. We're doing Financially Fit DC, and she has started announcing it and making it her legacy project. So we've done very well with the 12 modules that go through the learner management system. That is also what we did the research study on, and we have a very detailed research study that has been supported by Congresswoman Maxine Waters, Ron Dellums, Congressman Butterfield. I've presented it to the Capitol, Congressional Black Caucus, and a long list of other places, and it's been adopted into the Department of Education Family Engagement Policy as well.
Jerry, do you have a final question?
Yeah, so segment-wise, you're targeting high school kids?
We're primarily targeting high school and college students, but we recently did a pilot at with DPR, Department of Parks and Recreation, for younger kids, and I worked with 4 to 12-year-olds, and it worked very well.
What about adults?
Yes, with adults as well. We're working with the Community College Preparatory Academy, and that focuses only on adults. And I also worked on Obama's Veterans Initiative research study when he was bringing the troops home. I led it. And so we're also talking with Joining Forces right now as well for veterans, and we currently go out to the Southeast Veterans Transition Center, and it works well with them.
So, quick plug, I hope you applied for the JPMorgan CFSI
Yes,
Financial Lab.
3 weeks ago.
As an alumni, I can tell you it's a great program and ton of resources to be able to deploy it. And personally, from my company standpoint, we'd love to talk because financial literacy is a component of our business. And so congratulations on all you're doing, and it sounds like it's a great product.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So I can feel a need to applaud in the room. I'm going to ask you to hold that for just a second. I mean, because this was amazing. You heard a lot of really fabulous ideas and really interesting new ways to tackle this. Lightning round, because I think I maybe have 90 seconds. Probably not. I'm taking 90 seconds. Because there's one thing I heard from all these innovators that I thought was really interesting, and I want to give the experts a last word. And that was a profound sense of optimism that on one hand I think is exciting and the reason why we all engage with the entrepreneurs in the first place. But I have to say I heard at least several of you say, no, there's no challenges whatsoever, bright skies in front of me. You all have lived the bumps in the road of what it takes to build a company, get to scale. You're thinking about this from a policy perspective. You're thinking about it from a business perspective. And so I'd love to get just some closing thoughts, ideas, and feedback for our entrepreneurs here as they really try to get their ideas from this conception phase. I mean, they're in different, each one of them are in different phases here, but as they try to get to the next level with their solutions. You start on the end and
Sure. So this is all part of a larger economic ecosystem for me. I travel around the country recruiting entrepreneurs to pitch on ABC's Shark Tank. As aforementioned, the most significant challenge that's mentioned to me is access to capital. As several of you mentioned, access to capital is not only an issue for potential business owners, it's an issue for individuals. And so we have to walk these individuals up the ladder of engagement from not being able to pay their bills week to week, to having savings, to having capital. necessary to be able to infuse it into their business ideas, build businesses around them, and then hopefully hire folks from the communities from which they come, which is the primary way that that our communities are going to renew themselves and grow going into the future. There are several significant issues that the Minority Business Development Agency has very well documented the disparity in terms of loans, in terms of venture capital, in terms of equity, et cetera, across the board for both women and communities of color. We don't get the loans. We definitely don't get the capital injections that are necessary to grow the businesses. But I just had a conversation in New York. We had casting calls in New York yesterday and talked about what are the alternatives in terms of financing. And one, being innovative. Two, building relationships with community banks, CDFIs, et cetera. Three, there are crowdfunding and other opportunities that are there, that other legislative means that many members of here on Capitol Hill have been working on. But the primary way really is to empower folks in our community to have the capital to be able to lend. And so because of that, definitely very supportive of what's happening here and would love to work with anyone on improving this going forward.
Excellent. My final kind of words of advice are, I stand before you as an entrepreneur that has actually utilized a number of the different platforms that we've talked about. I've received a church loan, as I mentioned, no interest church loan. And so I cannot say how important having access to communities and networks are, to communities of color specifically. And we didn't even go for a bank loan for this particular business, but we did go by leveraging our social capital to the church, and the church actually gave us that loan. And so if you all are affiliated with a church or lead a church, please look at that as an economic empowerment and entrepreneurship igniter, as I mentioned before, in the community. And we are investing millions of dollars into banks that we also need to hold accountable for lending back into our communities through business and entrepreneurship. I've also crowdfunded. I have crowdfunded. Crowdfunding puts yourself out there just like a pitch does. You have to be very publicly proclaiming that you need this money and asking people. It's as close to running a political campaign as running a political campaign is. You work on it every single day, and whether it's successful or not, you can be successful with it. And there are lots of different types of platforms that are used, and I encourage people to consider that. We have worked where we have gotten contracts, and I have slept on floors and slept in rooms trying to save my money to self-fund businesses that I've been involved in. I say all that to say, yesterday, Brandon and I were actually together yesterday, and one of the things that I mentioned was that all of these things are possible when you actually live within your means, because that is the first step for all of this. While we're talking about financial empowerment for a number of communities, the reality is that even people in this room who have access to high-paying jobs and have had access to quality education are still, in many instances, living paycheck to paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. And so living because we're trying to drive the latest car, or we're trying to wear the nicest shoes, or we're trying to do something that continues to keep elevating us, and the bar just keeps getting higher, no matter how far up or down or over on the echelon you fall. And so if you are able to save your money, it gives you the nest egg that you need to financially empower yourself to actually leap out on faith and start a business, or to moonlight and invest that money into your business. So the first sacrifice that comes from the $3 trillion spend that is coming out of the Black and Hispanic community together is whether or not we're spending our money on things that are truly important, because there is money there, but we just have to ask ourselves how we are using our own access to our own financial resources.
So congratulations to all of you for at least getting to this step. Stepping out on faith as an entrepreneur, it's tough. It's the hardest part of the journey. And I'm saying that and saying the journey is really hard. But just taking that first step and believing in your vision believing in something that you're passionate about. This is a long process. It requires perseverance. It requires the ability to remain focused despite what others may say and despite any naysayers. So believe in what you're doing. Put your head down. Execute. It really comes down to one thing: executing. People will always doubt you, especially selling innovation. Innovation is hard to sell to begin with, and you're solving problems that a lot of people may not have experience with, and so it's harder to sell to an investor a product that they don't have any empathy for, right? And they can't empathize with. So it's going to be difficult, but it can be done. So believe in it and execute and put your head down.
Okay, now is when you guys get to applaud. Thank you all, the experts, for lending your time, your energy, your vision, the feedback, and for our entrepreneurs for giving us a great set of solutions to continue to chew on. So thank you.